Welcome to this next video module. How can I verify my students' completion of testlets during the fall/winter? How do I know that my students have finished the correct testlets for state accountability purposes? This module was done in response to concerns a number of teachers across the state had about finding some ways that they could monitor that they had given the required testlets for state accountability purposes. And so we're going to talk about several ways that you can do that. First off, just a reminder, Iowa has specific essential elements that must be tested at each grade level in the fall/winter instructionally embedded testing periods. Those are reflected on the test blueprint, and we know that missing any of those requirements at a specific grade level will result in students counting as exclusions for state accountability assessment. So they would count as not participating. Of course, we want to avoid that. There were some districts, some teachers, and administrators that raised questions this year when they got information back from the state saying that some students had not completed the requirements. Some teachers had concerns thinking that they had completed the requirements, and in a few cases they had inadvertently missed some of those requirements, and so we're going to talk about some ways that we can keep track of that. And one way is a requirement this year is using that test blueprint record form just to keep a record of what you've given. So what I'm showing here on screen right now would look familiar. This was shared in a previous video module, and this document is available on the Agora site for you to download and use. And so I just happen to have a segment of a 5th grade record form here, and you can see the kinds of things that we would like you to record. You have your essential element here. There's a place to briefly record the linkage level that you're using, and then for the fall and winter testing periods, record the date where you've that instructional plan has been recorded in ITI, and the date where you completed the testing. And you would want to do that for fall and winter. And so having a record like this, you keep those dates up to date, you'll see the gaps, and by the time you get through fall and winter, you'll have a record that will make you more confident that you've covered the required essential elements so that your student will count as participating. So this form is considered a requirement this year, and we want everybody to keep track of that. And again, that's on the Agora site, and you're going to want to keep a copy. There'll be a version of this by grade level for math as well, and you want to keep track of these. And keep in mind, ELA and math are part of this instructionally embedded process, so you'd have a record form for each of those areas, whereas science is only given as a spring assessment, and in that case the essential elements are being delivered by the system rather than you choosing them. In addition to using the blueprint record form, there are some report options that are in the system. We want to make sure the teachers are aware of these. The administration manual that's also linked on the Agora site has directions for accessing this report and others, but let's take a quick walkthrough to show you one that we think is particularly useful to start out with, this individual student progress report. If you're going into the portal, across the top you'll see several tabs here: settings, test management, and you'll see one that's reports. And as you get some choices here when you go into that report section, one that we think will be especially useful to help you monitor and make sure that you hit the required essential elements is the student progress one. That's arrowed there, and let's take a look at what that report will look like. As you go in to look at this report, you'll have some choices. You'll just have some drop downs. The system will want you to verify your district, your school, your subject area, ELA or math, and then once you do that, you would get a drop down of students in the system, and you could generate what I will show you here, this individual student progress report for your student. It looks like this. So let's take a look at the information you would be able to glean from this individual progress report. You can see the essential elements are going to be listed across left here. You're just seeing one page of a multiple page report. And of course this report would be as long as the number of essential elements you have given. It would just increase in length depending on the number that you have in the system that you're working on with the student. But producing this at different times, you can easily do this Print a copy for a student, save it as a PDF on your computer, and that will give you a snapshot on the date of where you are. So again, we want you to keep track manually of what you have given up here on this Iowa blueprint. But this report will give you a kind of an inside view of what the system has down for you in terms of what's been completed. You'll see some color coding across here. Now, I should clarify here, these levels that go across are referring to your linkage levels. So we know that we're putting students in the system at different linkage levels. You can see this student on the mock-up report here is mostly working right here. A couple things to point out. This color, when you see that, assessed, no results available, that is a code on this particular report that's just referring to writing, because a master level is not available for writing on this particular report. But yet, if you see that color, you can be assured that you completed that one. The system says, I know that writing testlet has been done. And then you have some different colors as well here that refer to attempted and mastered. These also are telling you that the test is done. So if you see this shading for attempted, attempted means the test was done, but not yet at the mastery level. When you see the dark blue here, the mastery level, that's referring to an 80% mastery on that particular testlet. And that's good information for you to have as well, because that could give you some insights as to the right linkage level for the next round in some cases. So these will tell you, it will show you through the shading what testlets have been completed. Now look over here though, this light green equals planned. So when you see that color in different spots, that's telling you that in the system, this essential element testlet is planned. You've created an instructional plan, but you've not yet given the assessment. So when I'm looking at this mock-up right here, I see several that are yet to come. And so you could check yourself by going in and saying, oh yes, there's one that I planned. I've not yet given that. I need to get that done. But again, you would need to compare what you would see on this individual student progress report back up to the blueprint for a certain grade level and do that matching, and just making sure that you've covered all those requirements. Because again, you may choose to assess beyond the blueprint, but you want to make sure you hit the requirements so that your student counts for accountability purposes. That last report I showed you, of course, was a student by student, an individual kind of report. There's also a class roster report that can be run. This will be probably of most use to some teachers who have a larger group of students involved in alternate assessment. Probably if you just have one or several students, the individual reports are going to be most useful to you. But you can run this, and so you can see here it would show, I'm just showing you a segment here, but this is a segment, this would continue on for as long as the report is, based on the students, which I have kind of covered here, and their grade levels. So it would show you in a list format, how many third graders do you have, here's the student name, here's what they've done so far, and you can see listing the essential elements, showing the linkage levels, but you can see it says assessed and it has a date there. So again, this is a different way you could look for a record of what's been assessed in the system. You could compare that back to the blueprint for your grade level, and again, that's going to give you some insights as to whether or not, where you are in hitting these requirements. Finally, I wanted to show you a different kind of report that can be generated. Again, the Reports tab, but under Data Extracts, there's some downloads. Now you can see a list of reports here. These are more along the lines of raw data kinds of reports. They basically generate Excel files with numbers in them. They're not color-coded and well organized like the ones I've just shown you. But I want you to be aware that these are here. These are probably going to be most used by DLM coordinators, maybe data stewards, and probably the most useful for larger systems that have a lot of teachers and a lot of students involved in alternate assessment. But I want you to know that they're there, and there's one particular one, for example, that could be useful in monitoring completion of the testlets and the requirements, and it's called DLM Test Administration Monitoring. And so you can see that description there, testlets assigned and completed in a subject per student used to monitor test administration. When they use the term request this report, it takes a little bit of time to process that, and then you can go and open it and look at that in an Excel format. So that extract that I just was pointing to, rather than show you an Excel file with numbers, which is what you would get, I'm just showing you from the manual the fields that you would get. So it would be a way of looking at these pieces of information. So in one column you'd see the number of instructional plans confirmed for a student, but which the student has not started. Then we'd see the number of instructionally embedded testlets that are in progress, so not yet completed. Then we'd see the number of instructionally embedded testlets completed, and then a comparison in another column to how many are required. So we're just looking at numbers. How many are done, how many are in progress, how many are required in a content area. And as I said, probably at the teacher level, this is probably going to be much more visual and useful to you, but the data extract is there. It may be used by some of your coordinators that are working with a lot of teachers, and they may use that just to get a sense of how far along are you in the testing process. You can pull those as a teacher as well, though, so we just wanted to show those as options. I want to thank you for listening to this video module, and we will finish there.